book has no story.
I'm not that creative.
Let's cue creative block. But first, let's start with a mind-blowing story.
We need weapons.
5 decades ago, astronauts set course to space with the goal of making the third landing on the moon. But something went terribly wrong, and they showed incredible resourcefulness in killing the gremlin and fixing the problem. So here's what happened. After an oxygen tank exploded, Apollo 13's astronauts were stuck in space and running out of oxygen. In order to survive, they had to find a way to collaborate in perfect synergy with the NASA team on Earth. Facing a limited time frame and restricted resources, there was no room for creative block. Now, keep in mind, this is the 1970s. They were decades away from Google, let alone ChatGPT or any other high-tech tool we have nowadays.
No internet, no emails, no CCs, no BCC.
Still, they managed to transform a spacecraft designed for moon landings into a lifeboat, conserving power, oxygen, and other essential supplies. All the while, from Earth, the NASA team guided the astronauts around the moon, using the ship's gravitational pull to slingshot Apollo 13 back to Earth, safe and sound. Just like that, what could have been a great catastrophe became a statement on the power of human creativity.
What are you saying?
If you're not sure what's the point I'm trying to make here, think of
Airbnb.
the multi-billion-dollar business that came from recently graduated roommates who were struggling to afford rent. I'm sure everyone can relate to that.
The economy.
Faced with a problem and many limitations, they use their creativity to not only solve their problem, but to fill a huge gap in the market that made them billions of dollars.
Where are you going with this one?
As much as we tend to work well under pressure, we don't really need it. All it takes is adding one simple habit to our daily lives to enable us to create great things just for the fun of it. Let's talk about creative constraints. If I asked you right now to create anything you wanted, in whatever color or material, however long it took, and for whatever purpose you wanted, could you decide what to do? What if instead I asked you to express one emotion you felt yesterday using only a piece of paper and a pen, and within 5 minutes? Plus, it doesn't have to be good or even make sense. Could you do it now? While the first scenario gives you endless possibilities, the latter, similarly to Apollo 13's challenge, breaks down which tools you have, the time frame, and the purpose of the creation. There are still an infinite number of ways you can decide to accomplish the task. You could write, draw, build something, and within each of these options, there are still many more. What you would draw, write, or build. Now imagine if the Airbnb founders weren't struggling with money and they did. Their surroundings, needs, and limitations structure the creative process that allowed them to come up with Airbnb. Despite what you would think at first glance, the second scenario I presented you have simply directed your creativity, not limited its power.
What did you say?
You see, too much freedom can be overwhelming at times, especially regarding creativity, because when you're free to do absolutely anything without not even as much as a single constraint set, chances are you will end up with nothing at all. This is why creative constraints are the one secret to kill the gremlin. There are limitations, guidelines, or challenges that will influence your creative process. They can be self-imposed or come from the external world, like a rent bill or the tools you have at home. The best part of it?
It's free!
You can set constraints based on your budget, time available, resources, medium, or style. Creative constraints are essential because they help you structure the process and unburden our brains, leaving room for creativity to flow. At the same time, constraints foster problem-solving skills by pushing us to think outside of the box. In fact, a recent study by Harvard researchers on this subject revealed that when options are limited, people generate more rather than less varied solutions. In other words, constraint allows our brains to do what they do best, solve problems. Now, we can't approach creativity without talking about its arch enemy,
Now it has to be perfect and magical.
I once had an art teacher who prohibited us from using erasers in class. We couldn't even have them over the table. They should be tucked away and forgotten inside our backpacks. At first, I was mad at him, and I wasn't alone. The whole class felt like he was taking from us the chance to do something good, when he was in fact trying to teach us to embrace our mistakes rather than running from them. He wanted us to learn how to work around instead of pretending they didn't exist. For too long, I took for granted this powerful lesson, and my fear of imperfection has prevented me from achieving many good things in life.
It's weird. It's just like I'll have an idea and I think it's sick, and then half an hour later I'll hate it. It's so hard to differentiate if it's actually bad or if it's the part of my heart that just hates itself that much. It's just trying to inflict pain on me, you know what I mean? It's like, what?
Truth is, perfection is creativity's biggest enemy. If you want to let your creative juices flow freely, add constraints, but also embrace imperfection as part of the process. You know what? Take off the pressure. Try making something bad first. Write a shitty book, paint a hideous picture, list all the terrible ways you could solve a problem. Without out of the way, you'll be able to actually do something freely. Besides, each mistake will guide you in new directions, and sometimes lead you to breakthroughs you could never reach otherwise. I invite you to look up your favorite artist's history. Look closely. All of them had some sort of limitation, wisely reframed as a strength. The creative process is different for everyone, but I no longer believe it should be as painful as it is for so many of us. So give it a try, and if you know someone else who's struggling, share this video with them, and don't forget to subscribe for more.